Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UBNradio.com. You and I go hard at each other like we're going to war. You and I go rough, we keep throwing things and slamming the doors. You and I get so damn dysfunctional.
Adam Levine, it's really hard for me to then refocus and regroup and try and talk politics. I just want to get up and dance. Thanks for playing that, Kurt. No problem. I love you for that. Welcome everybody to What's Up with Deborah Zara Kobylt and Linda Hayes. Linda is on a business trip. And since we're going to be talking all about politics, I invited an old friend of mine.
I've been demoted to old friend?
Yeah, you're lucky that that's all it is. So here's John Kobylt from KFI Radio. He was nice enough to give me an hour before he goes and runs off and does his own show.
Normally billed as her husband, but that's fine.
Yeah, why not? Whatever. Anyway, thanks for coming in. Thanks for coming
welcome.
in. We were all vacillating last night between watching the Democratic debate and between the Mets game, right? We had upstairs going with the Mets game, downstairs going with my friends and watching the Democratic debate, which I was supposed to go to, and I didn't for various reasons. But it was fun watching on TV. What did you think?
Well, I only saw part of it because I was way more attracted to the baseball game.
Yeah, you were.
You know, I'm not a natural audience for debates unless people are screaming insults at each other.
That's why you like the Donald Trump one.
That's why I like the Donald Trump debate. If he's not in the debate, you know, what you get is these canned, rehearsed responses. And generally, the moderators are wimps. You know, they don't corner the candidates and hit them with repeated follow-up questions to really expose them.
I thought Anderson was great. I thought he just kept going after. You didn't?
I thought he wimped out on the email stuff.
You did? He tried, but she wasn't going to go there.
I think he got intimidated when Bernie Sanders started shouting at him and the crowd started applauding when Sanders says, "I'm sick of these damn emails."
Hey, you just took the thunder out of my whole thing. Thanks a lot. Anyway, I was going to go to Hillary talking about it. I mean, it might be kind of a long clip, so we might have to sort of cut it up a little bit. First, let's hear from her. I thought she really tried. Okay, wait a minute. I actually thought she really tried to answer to that, and I really thought, as someone who does give a little bit of advice for candidates and whatnot before they're about to go on the air, I really think she did her best to try and be as honest as she could. Usually she deflects everything. And this is one time where she tried to at least answer it and say, all right, I made a mistake. I mean, she tried to slough it off and he wouldn't let her, at least in my opinion. And he came back to it. But at least she tried to sort of address it as opposed to just toss it to the side. You don't think so?
She made a modest effort because she had to, but she's really not forthcoming. She's really not explaining it in detail. I mean, you know.
Well, that wasn't the place to explain it in detail.
Well, yeah, she's running for office.
All right,
now,
well, not there. All right, let's hear that clip. Wait. What happened?
See, I told you she was dodging it. She just wouldn't speak.
Kurt's turning redder and redder and redder. Was there just an issue with it?
Yeah, let me reset the page.
That's all right. When you get it up, just let me know.
To be fair, I didn't see the entire debate. I did get distracted by the ball.
From the minute it opened, I actually thought she came on strong. I was very curious because you know my opinion. It's basic. Is that it? All right, here we go. Can I talk over this thing?
For the last 8 months, you haven't been able to put this issue behind you. You dismissed it. You joked about it. You called it a mistake. What does that say about your ability to handle far more challenging crises as president?
Well, I've taken responsibility for it. I did say it was a mistake. What I did was allowed by the State Department, but it wasn't the best choice.
Done.
And I have been as transparent.
You know, just right there, at least she came right out front and admitted it. I mean, basically, in my opinion, before that, she sort of would dodge the question entirely. I mean, the word mistake, I heard front and center.
And it took 8 months to get that out of her.
Okay, well, she did it. And I actually think because she finally did it in a public forum there, I think she actually came out looking a little better. I really did.
All right. Well, I guess I'm just harsher on these people, you know? You're
Okay,
more forgiving and you're more understanding.
Okay, look,
and it's
basically,
all right.
to me, the debate was between two people. All right. I mean, I don't even remember the other guys.
Well, the other guys shouldn't be there. If you have less than
you
one...
have to. Okay, you have to throw somebody else up there because, you can't just have the two of them because eventually it's just going to be the two of them anyway.
I know, but they end up getting half the time, and you add up the three of them combined don't equal 1%. Mm-hmm. So, they should be in the audience. They should be home. Mm-hmm. They should be home sitting in their underwear, eating popcorn. They have no right being up there.
Okay, can we hear from Bernie and his comment on the email? I thought that was hilarious. I loved it. It was the thing of the night.
Let me say something that may not be great politics, but I think the secretary is right. And that is that the American people are sick and tired of hearing about your damn emails.
Me too.
Enough of the emails. Let's talk about the real issues facing America.
And then she shakes his hand, right?
He wants to be vice president.
He can't be vice president. So here's I think that took her by surprise, don't you?
It took everybody by surprise,
I think she really expected him to go after her. At least it was a civilized debate.
If he wants to be president, he should be going after her. I mean, no sense giving away one of your strongest issues is that a lot of people think she's a liar and she's untrustworthy and she's a conniving schemer. And why would you give that away if you want to beat her? That's your best weapon against her personally.
You want to know something? Because I actually think he spoke honestly. I think he said, you know what, enough with it. Here's the issues that I want to focus on. And I actually sort of thought that it was terrific that he did that. I really did.
All right. Well, I think there's you want to win, you have to be cutthroat and ruthless. He's new on the scene. He's making his first big impression yesterday. And to me, he came across like, all right, I'm going to give away my best issue against her personally. That's not a guy who wants to win. I mean, that's not Trump up there.
What came across to me about him, I was really surprised. I've been to Denmark. I know what it's like there. It's sort of like the Truman Show. Everybody gets up in the morning, gets on the same bike, and sort of goes in the same path, the same direction, on their way to work. And they all sort of look the same. And then he's holding up Denmark as the choice place of how to live. Now, I'm sure maybe their health care is, I don't know enough about that.
You know how many people live in Denmark?
I know, what is it, 5 million?
Yes, 5.5 million.
I know.
Well,
I just thought his reference was ridiculous. And to me, that set him up as more of a socialist than a Democrat.
And you have a homogenous country. They're all white Danish people, and they're all, make about the same amount of money. It's not comparable to the United States. I mean, the United States is wildly more diverse and more complicated.
Right. So I was a little surprised that is how simplistic that he thinks, that he actually thinks that we should be, more like what they're doing over there. I was very surprised that when I heard that, I thought a lot less of him because I don't want a socialist as a president. That's what we got away from a few hundred years ago, in my opinion.
And I think a smart guy knows that the countries are not comparable. You just simply intellectually can't make that comparison.
Right, but what he was saying was that's the type of government that he wants to have. That's the kind of thing that he would go to. He would raise taxes to a point where it takes care of other people. I believe, I do, in taking care of people. I believe in creating jobs. But I'm not sure if he wants to raise taxes to help other people or help figure out a way to create jobs to help people. And to me, that's a big difference.
When he gets into that stuff, he's one of these utopian guys. And you'll always get a following because there's utopian people who want, I call them people for a perfect world. But in the real world, that'll never fly. How does he get any of this stuff past a Republican Congress? It's just kind of a waste of time. And it's not something most of the American public is into. No, I've never heard anyone say, I wish we were all like the Danish. Maybe they want to eat a Danish.
Did you watch this thing last night? Yeah. You did? What did you think? I love asking Kurt's opinion.
I mean, I like Bernie Sanders. To me, he's just a likable guy. So
See, people vote a lot on likability.
Yeah. Oh, I know
you don't. You have to know the issues down to the point where you're reading every issue at midnight, literally. But most people, don't you think it's about likability?
You know what?
I liked him too, but I like him more as a neighbor and not really a guy who's probably going to raise my taxes even more. I'm not into that because I like to know where my money's going. I don't mind raising the taxes, but where's my money going? That's what I need to know first, and then cut that, and then you can spend to help.
I've heard you protest taxes at home, though.
I just said I need to know where my money's going first, and but if I think something's going toward a good cause and the money's being well spent, But if there's layers of bureaucracy and layers of government and layers of pensions that I have to pay for, on and on and on, That's where I stopped.
Wasn't he kind of jarring to hear the first time, though?
I loved his accent. Are you talking about his accent?
Yeah, this Brooklyn Jewish New York accent. I mean,
what did you think? Look, I'm from New York, so when I hear that kind of stuff, it makes me like really feel at home.
Yeah, like I said, it just seems relatable to me. Like he seems like a guy I can hang out with and just.
Yeah, I felt like I was back in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
so.
Oh, I liked him. I think he comes across great. I understand why people follow him. I'm just saying, once you get past that and you start looking what he's talking about, it's like, well, now that's never going to fly.
Okay, what do you think about that? We got to get a camera on you. I put you on the spot every week.
You're getting interrogated.
I know, seriously. I mean, I like that he's trying to, help everyone. I don't know if it's feasibly possible to do all of that he's asking for, but I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not.
There's reality limits.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
What did the polls come out with this morning? I mean, I know that Hillary. I mean, it said here I was reading an article in the New York Times.
The analysts thought she dominated the stage.
She did.
And she did.
Okay, this was Patrick Healy from the New York Times. Is that our Patrick Healy, our local guy? Or
No.
There's like two Patrick Healys out there?
There's probably dozens.
Okay, doesn't our local guy work for Channel 4?
Channel 4, yeah.
Okay, and now he's over at the New York Times. I got very confused. I thought, wait a minute, did he lose his job and he ran over there? So there's two journalists, Patrick Healys. And he was saying, just like you're saying, that she did dominate the stage. I thought she did. I thought from the first minute she came out, she seemed, to coin your phrase, likable. And I was surprised. I didn't know what I was going to find. Because I know when Carly got up there, to compare women, if you will, I thought she seemed so unlikable. She scared me. Hillary to me just seemed like somebody.
Well, I think she's a better actress than Carly. Mm-hmm. I think from what we've read, and we're going to get into this later with one of our guests, I think she's more like Carly off stage. And Carly comes and presents herself as this harsh, angry woman, whereas Hillary is able to put on the mask, and she's just a better performer.
So what are the latest polls saying after this? Because I know those two were neck and neck, and I think now, after last night, Hillary came ahead.
Yeah, he had a lead in New Hampshire at Iowa, so I haven't seen any polls.
Got your iPad? Take a look at it.
Well, it's kind of quick. Only Matt Drudge had a poll where you volunteer to vote, and on that, that's not a scientifically balanced audience. This Bernie people just overwhelmed the polling site.
So what were the numbers on Drudge's site?
It would take a second for me to find it. I mean, but this is pure people voting. It's not.
See, I'm looking for somebody to vote this time. Why I'm so incredibly interested in this particular year, I don't know. But it's between Trump over on the other side, and I still think Hillary's going to dominate at the end of all this. I want to know I want to really be able to stand behind somebody. I personally would love to vote for a woman. It's a personal interest of mine.
But not Carly.
I can't get behind Carly.
All right, so it's not just
and
a woman.
you know I don't vote by party. I vote by the guy or girl in this case. And this time I would love to be able to get behind a woman. I know I can't get behind her. I can't do it.
Okay, so it's not just it's not just being a woman, obviously. Otherwise you take Carly equally as much as you take Hillary.
I can't vote for her. I just said that. I just can't. I mean,
all right, here's the Drudge thing. Sanders got 54% of the vote. Jim Webb.
Oh, come on.
And good luck picking him out of a police lineup. 25%.
Did anybody really know him until last night? Everyone that I was sitting with said, "Who's that?"
The three other guys, they're all out of work.
What three guys?
Well, Webb.
I'm joking. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Who? I mean, when I saw them up there, I thought, wait a minute, who are they? Right, because they're out of work.
They're all former.
Right, exactly.
Webb was a former senator in Virginia.
Got former senators, former governors.
O'Malley's former governor in Maryland, and Lincoln Chafee was
Virginia?
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
Which is 50
East
people. It's like being a homeowners association
But you know why they do
president.
that. You got to prop up somebody, and that's also name recognition for the future. So, these guys are doing what they have to do.
But see, that just shows you the passion of the Bernie crowd. Bernie has the most passionate audience, and he's also raking in tons of money, and he's not taking contributions from the Wall Street banks like Hillary is. He's much more pure. He's getting it online, millions and millions of dollars online from people donating, $50 and $100.
Actually, let's talk about that. The donations. Where are her donations coming from? Because that's been a little suspect too.
Oh, she's totally sold out to Wall Street. See, this is where I get a little crazy about her, because she sells herself as income inequality is terrible, and we have two extremes in this country. Do you know how much money she made just doing speeches for like Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan? $3.15 million in a single year.
You know, I've told you to be doing speeches for years.
Well, yeah, I know.
Okay, because people would rather hear what you have to say than her. But anyway,
and those speeches are 45 minutes. She gets more money than Bill Clinton does for a speech. She got $225,000 for an hour's work. 220. So when I hear her carry on about CEO salaries, it's like, whoa, time out here. Because she goes to these CEOs and she gets, $250,000 for an hour and then runs out and says, well, this system's really unfair to the poor.
is she saying the salaries, or is she saying that, not enough money is coming out of those salaries and there's too many loopholes?
Both. Salaries are too high.
Well, that's ridiculous. You can't go lowering somebody's salary. I mean, you just can't. You could perhaps take more out of it to sort of make it more even, which is what Bernie wants to do. He wants Denmark.
That's what the government do. You can't put a cap on salaries.
No, that's absurd.
But you can, tax them at a 90% rate, which, years ago, back in the World War II era,
I know.
there was a 90% tax rate.
And that is my concern because, as you know, both of us come from very, very little. And whatever we've made on our own. And now I really don't want so much of my money unless I know where it's going. I don't want those taxes raised to the point where then I can't do what it is that I want to do for my own family. So that's where I stand on that. It's very confusing to me. I don't know where to go. I go one side to the Republicans. I don't really believe in what they're doing. I go over here. So
Dan Schnur supposedly coming on soon.
I don't know. Is he on?
Are we calling him or is he calling us?
He hasn't called in yet.
He hasn't called in. What the heck? Is he teaching his class or something?
He's a USC professor. And
he's on?
Right as you said that.
Oh, okay. Oh, you like magic.
Dan?
Hey.
How are you?
You're on the air.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Great. We've been bantering about, thank you for coming on, Dan Schnur. You are, at this point, my go-to guy. I mean, it might as well just be neighbors. But John and I, he's my guest today, so it's nice enough to come in. We're talking about the debates last night. I want your opinion. Who do you think came out the front runner? Hillary?
I think that, and I'd be interested in your guys' opinion, too. Clinton's been getting a huge amount of acclaim in the mainstream news media for her debate performance.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it's overblown. She was good. She wasn't great.
I disagree.
But
you want to know? You want to know?
Good enough.
Because everybody didn't like her. They didn't like the way she was answering questions about the emails and all sorts of other things. And I think this time she actually appeared a little friendly. I think she took people by surprise. And that's why they're saying that she did such a great job.
Why did you think she was good but not great?
There were still a lot of moments where I thought she was somewhat defensive and sort of uneasy. Sanders really struggled in a lot of areas, and the other candidates were really non-factors. So by comparison, she looked good. And that's probably enough to reassure a lot of Democratic activists and donors who are starting to get nervous about her.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
But how do you think she'd up with that performance if she faced an aggressive Republican?
Well, that's right. She wasn't hitting major league pitching last night. Sanders gave her a free pass on certainly the most difficult issue of the night by letting her off the hook on emails. And the other candidates, even when they tried to criticize her, didn't do it in a particularly forceful or effective way.
I think they were intimidated.
Depending on who the Republican nominee is, I think it's going to be a much greater challenge for her.
Why do you think candidates kind of wimp out when they finally get on stage? I mean, if they really want to be president, why don't they go after her more forcefully and really mix it up?
If you're Martin O'Malley and you're running at 1.5% in the polls, no matter how assertive you are in public, you know in your heart that it's probably a long shot. And you think to yourself, I really want to be president, but if I can't be president, maybe I want to be Secretary of Commerce. So maybe I ought to hold my punches a little bit.
Oh, so they're all auditioning in their cabinet, maybe.
I also noticed how she really seemed to be aligning herself with Obama. Did you notice that as well?
I did notice that. For somebody who's been criticizing him on any number of issues over the last couple of weeks, the biggest difference you could come up with last night was the number of chromosomes.
How do you think this plays beyond the, there was like a Democratic activist partisan crowd in the theater. How do you play to regular people outside, not political geeks, but people who are, looking for the next president? And, she's got such a history and she's got so much baggage. Is anything she does on a night like last night, does that really change anyone's mind even slightly?
I don't know if it changes anyone's mind, but it opens their mind. For the average voter who isn't watching cable TV news 20 hours a day, all they know about Hillary Clinton over the last several months is email scandal. And like I said, last night she might not have been great, but she was good. And she told a few jokes. She was a little bit self-deprecating. She reminded of voters that she'd be the first female president. And it might not have been transformative. It was enough to remind voters that there's something more to her than a stack of confidential emails.
You know, I was sitting with some people last night. One was women. One was a doctor and a few other people, very well educated. And you know what they said to me? What the heck is Benghazi? And tell me again about the email scandal. It's so confusing to so many people, even very, very well educated, smart people. Do you find that? And almost to the point where when Bernie said, forget it, put it behind us, I think people were almost relieved. They said, yeah, tell me what I need to know. Do you think so?
Well, people don't know the details. They don't know the specifics of the controversy, either of Benghazi or the emails. But if you look at the poll numbers over the last several months, Secretary Clinton's approval ratings have fallen tremendously. And the number of voters who say that they trust her are very small compared to those who don't. So even if voters don't know the details of the controversy, they suspect that there's something there that's not quite on the up and up, and that is having an impact on her.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think she needs to do? I think she came out looking terrific. I got into this debate thinking, oh boy, I wonder what she's going to say. I thought she came out the front runner without a doubt, in my opinion. So what do you think she has to do to stay there, since so much of what I'm reading this morning sort of concurs with what I'm also saying?
Well, if I were the Clinton campaign, I would go back to the Democratic National Committee and say, you know what, we changed our mind. Let's do lots and lots of these debates. Because the more she gets to stand on the stage next to Bernie Sanders and Jim Webb, the better that is for her.
Well, she's got a lot of experience, and the rest of them don't. I mean, she's been on a national stage debating, for a long time. And, she's got pretty good acting ability. She even did well in that Saturday Night Live sketch.
We have a clip of that. We can show that in a minute.
She's got a presence, and the other guys just looked like, I don't know, they just walked out of work. They just didn't look like the kind of politicians who could grab the moment, grab the stage, have the charisma to really have an impact.
What were your thoughts on Bernie?
I thought Bernie realized about halfway through that he wasn't speaking to an auditorium full of thousands of people. And he finally stopped shouting and started talking. And once he did calm down a little bit, if you agree with the substance of what he's saying, he was pretty good. But for the first half of the debate, I think he was very off-putting to people, even who might have wanted to hear to him, just because he was so confrontational and so combative. He told reporters with great pride that he had not practiced for the debate. I think that was pretty clear.
Yeah, you would think he would be, since it's his first national debate, there would have been a lot of rehearsal there, because again, you want to do well, and you want to understand what are the pitfalls, what are the traps I could fall into, what are the things not to do.
And that's why Deb's point about Hillary is the right one. She was obviously very well prepared, and she did not have to think on the spot about how to answer the question about whether she is a progressive or not. She had an answer ready. And it played very well. And you're exactly right, John. Over the years, she's debated a lot of times. She understands the importance of being prepared, and showed last night.
And not just ready, in my opinion, where she was just reciting what they told her to say. She seemed comfortable with her answers. Whether she believed them or not is one thing, but she seemed comfortable, which is why I think people came out of there saying, "Oh, she was all right."
Is that all it takes to influence people?
I think so.
Oh, I think so. I mean, once again, this comes back to the fact she's done this a lot of times over the years. When you do something a lot, you get good at it.
I think we have somebody else on the line. Who's calling in?
Hi, it's Ron Kessler calling in.
Oh, very good.
We'll talk
maybe
to him
he
in
can
just a
be
minute.
sort of part of our conversation. Just so you know who we've got coming on, this is a real treat. We've got Ron Kessler, who was one of the Secret Service agents.
Well, no, he's a writer who
he's talking about
interviewed Secret Service agents who worked on Hillary Clinton's detail.
Which is an amazing story when I read about this. It was absolutely incredible. So he's on the other line. He's actually on a little bit early, so I'm glad that you called in. But, Ron, if you could just wait for a minute or two.
Sure.
Any sort of final words that you can give us, Dan, about what do you think we should be looking for with her? Where do you think they're going to be going?
The most important thing that happened last night is that Hillary Clinton reassured Democrats that they don't need to be worried about her. the subtext of her message to Democratic Party loyalists and donors and activists was, hey, I got this. I know what I'm doing. And a lot of people who were panicked 48 hours ago in the Democratic Party are now feeling much better about her prospects.
Mm-hmm. Okay, wonderful. Now we're going to speak to Ron, but if you want to stay on, you're welcome to stay on and just sort of chime in. That'd be great. Ron, thanks so much for being here and for coming on with us. I mean, this book is absolutely incredible. You're the author of The First Family Detail, correct?
Correct.
And we were reading the New York Post synopsis of the book. I suppose you saw that?
Yes.
Yeah, and it focused on a lot of the hot-button stories. For example, Secret Service agent wishes Hillary Clinton good morning.
Wait a minute.
And Hillary says,
I don't believe... Okay, go
bleep
ahead.
you. And so Deborah and I have been going back and forth on this. Deborah just can't believe that she would really do this. And I thinking, well, maybe why not? I mean, the guy's putting his name to the charge.
First of all, let me just interrupt. I found this to be a very compelling read. Once I found out about it and started reading about it, I couldn't stop. I'm not sure I believe a lot of what this guy is saying, because how could anybody possibly, talk to someone like that unless they were in the middle of the most incredibly, unbelievably heated argument? And we know that she and Bill used to fight like cats and dogs. And I know someone who worked in the White House at the time who said so as well. And then she was in the middle of an argument, in which case she turned to the guy and said, F you. Could that be possible? Or you think she just walked in and the guy said good morning and she goes, F you? I can't imagine.
No, this is her personality. She is just a very angry person who treats with contempt those very same little people that she claims she's going to help if she's president. Being assigned to her secret detail is considered a form of punishment, the worst detail in the Secret Service. And as you indicated, many of those quotes are on the record from agents who were on her detail. And I don't see why it's hard to believe. I mean, the human. There are humans who are criminals. There are humans who do all kinds of terrible things. I mean, do you believe that they do those things? She is someone who is just a nasty, nasty person. Someone you would never hire even in a McDonald's. And it goes to her character, and it foretells what would happen if she is in the White House, because people like that who treat others in such a shabby way are arrogant. And once anybody gets in the White House, they are frequently affected by the adulation that they receive. Richard Nixon, look at what happened with him. He was involved in the ethics episode that led to the Checkers speech, and sure enough, we got Watergate. So in the rest of our lives, we look at character, we look at track record. We would never deal with someone like that. We'd never choose someone like that as a friend or as an employee, and yet here she is running for president.
One of the other incidents you talk about is she's walking down a hallway and there's a worker screwing in a light bulb. What happened there?
Same thing. She just walks by. He says hello, and she says "F you." I mean, is that like all she's doing in there?
Well, yeah, she had issued instructions that she didn't want any work being done while she was in the residence portion of the White House, and somehow he didn't get the message, or she showed up without him knowing. But either way, she treated him like dirt, and there's just no excuse for that. I mean, imagine.
I'm just gonna. Can I imagine?
Ahead.
I'm going to give you a great example. Last Friday, I had to go somewhere, and I was in a towel. All right, in my bedroom, and there was a Time Warner man in my bedroom about to reconnect the televisions. I was so furious at this man. I practically unleashed worse, although I did not curse at him. I was furious that he was in my room, that I didn't know, that my towel was falling down. Now, I'm sure that, and I think he pretty much knew who John was. He probably left and called a friend and said, what a nut job this lady is. You won't believe what she was screaming at me. However, here's the real story. I'm in my towel, practically nothing on my way out the door, and there's this strange man in my bedroom. Do you see what I'm saying? Sometimes stuff happens, and you just don't know.
All right, so I guess...
I'm making a point.
I understand. So the thing is this just a series of bad moments in your book, or is, from talking to the Secret Service agents, is this the way she was all day and night to all
This is the way she is to this day, it just makes their lives miserable. And we've all heard of people like that. We've all heard of bosses who treat their employees with contempt, and she's one of them. As another example, another on-the-record quote from an FBI agent who was in the old executive office building. She walked by and she said, or the FBI agent said, "Hello, Mrs. Clinton," and she flew into a rage because she had issued instructions that nobody was supposed to talk to her, nobody at that level. The Clintons actually would instruct agents to hide behind curtains or hide behind partitions when they're walking down the corridor. I mean, this is pathological behavior. And again, we ignored the fact that President Obama spent 20 years listening to Reverend Wright with his anti-white, anti-Israel, anti-America hate speech. And sure enough, we got someone who's very left-wing, not as left-wing as Reverend Wright, but my most liberal friends and most liberal family members say they would have walked out if they heard that kind of talk. So this is the point. The point is, if we don't, if we just focus on what they said in a debate, what they promised, which they usually don't fulfill, and ignore the character, we're going to suffer the same fate that this country has suffered because we elected President Obama.
Who did you vote for in the last election?
I lean Republican, but my books are very nonpartisan. For example, in this book, The First Family Detail, I say that actually Obama does treat his agents with respect, in contrast to Hillary, although Michelle Obama has been overheard urging her husband to be more aggressive in attacking Republicans and siding with blacks in racial controversies, which we see him do over and over again. It also says that Mary Cheney tried to get her detail to take her friends to restaurants. They're not taxi drivers. They're law enforcement officers who are charged with protecting certain individuals under the law, and they refused, as they should have. But she threw a fit and got her detail leader removed over this. So that tells you a lot about Secret Service management, which does not support their own agents. And that's why you saw the uniformed officers at the White House gate let the Salahis in, the glamorous couple, the party crashers, even though they were not on the guest list, because they figured, hey, if it's a mistake and it turns out they were supposed to be on the guest list and we turn them away, we could be in trouble with our own management. They won't support us. It is a very nonpartisan book.
It seems like it's rare that Secret Service agents would do this and lend their names to these stories and these accusations.
I'll go a step further. You should not be able to. If Secret Service to me says secret, I don't think that they should be spilling any personal secrets at all, whether they're true or not, whether I believe this or not, and I don't necessarily believe it. I also find the timing of this to be incredibly interesting, but I just think they shouldn't even be allowed to. You should have to sign something that says you're not going to go and spill family secrets.
They don't sign non-disclosure agreements?
After I broke the story of the agents hiring prostitutes in Colombia, they did require that they sign confidentiality agreements. Before that, it was just understood, and there was a code of silence, and certainly is a legitimate point about keeping secrets. On the other hand, these people should not be running if they have embarrassing activities that would embarrass them if it became public.
If it's true,
and it doesn't impair our security because they don't. Agents are not in the residence. There are private moments, and any president who tried to evade protection because they were embarrassed about something, shouldn't be president.
Talk about the usher who got fired. Got fired by Hillary because he was helping Barbara Bush over the phone with Barbara's computer. What was that story?
Alleged. I'm going to say alleged. John, you could say all you want. To me, my show, I say it's alleged. I'm not really sure.
What kind of proof do
I
you
wasn't
want?
there. I'll tell you why. I wasn't there. And this is what this guy said. Maybe he's really got a vengeance for her, in which case, okay. I also know that she was under tremendous stress living under that White House. He put her through a lot. She was embarrassed, humiliated, and she probably was frothing at the mouth day and night.
Well, I don't think she has any right to take it out on,
but you
the people
don't know.
working there.
What if she was running down the hallway so pissed off at him, and then somebody said something?
I think it's
and
bad.
Off she goes.
You know what? She should have taken a chair and hit Bill with it.
You're right, but she didn't.
Now
Maybe she did.
Wait, talk about the Usher story.
This individual was fired because he returned a call of Barbara Bush, Hillary's predecessor, who had been taught how to use her laptop by this Usher. And she was having a problem. She was in a panic. She called him for help. He called her back. And because of that, Hillary fired her. And there's no question about it. The Washington Post has since done stories about it. And in another book, the liberal side, the Democratic side, gave their excuse, which was, well, Hillary is very careful, doesn't want to have any leaks, and that's why she fired him.
Sorry, I could see that too. I don't know, to be talking to the former First Lady, who also was a Republican. I don't know. Maybe she didn't trust him and said, you're gone. Now, if that's the case, why didn't Barbara just turn around and hire the guy?
All right,
That's what I'd like to know.
But,
No.
But Obama and his wife aren't doing this.
Oh, don't worry about it. They're still in.
And the Bushes didn't do this.
There's probably another book coming out in a couple of years. And you know that. Okay.
What was Bill like if Hillary was...
he was messing around the whole time, pissing her off.
I'm not defending him. But
Bill was... when he was in the White House, he was somewhat similar to Hillary. He would be 2 hours late. Typically, they referred to Clinton Standard Time, and he was never on time, which certainly was an inconvenience to agents. They expected to be home at a certain time, and there would be this delay. But after he left the White House, he became much friendlier. He tended to chat with the agents. So he's come across as someone who is much more admirable as opposed to Hillary. And by the way, the second worst detail is Joe Biden, because on the one hand, he does chat up the agents. They like him. But at the same time, he's very thoughtless about his schedule. On the spur of the moment, he'll say, I'm going up to Wilmington, his home, which he actually does several times a week. He gives the agents no prior warning, so they can never plan their social lives. They can't plan going, to their kid's birthday or anything else. He also will skinny dip both at his pool at the vice president's residence and also at his home in Wilmington, which offends female Secret Service agents. They signed up to take a bullet for the president, but not to see Joe Biden naked.
You don't want to see Joe Biden naked? Come on, that's beyond
this
the
is
Call
getting
of Duty
ridiculous.
here.
Who cares if he's
But
skinny
that's what
dipping?
they do. I do. It's terrible. He shouldn't be naked in front of female Secret Service agents.
If George Bush did that, what would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean,
I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care if he did it in front of me. I would turn the other way, or
I think you should conduct yourself with some class and dignity, especially when you're at that level. I really do.
It's his own private residence. Who cares?
Well, it's just
turn away.
Well, it's just the fact that female agents are offended by this, and that's just the way. I just report what the agents say.
Were they reluctant to tell you these stories, or was it cathartic for them?
I had to use my special powers to get them to talk. I would waterboard them. That worked pretty well. But I think they feel that I have a good track record of honesty, telling it like it is. For example, one of my books led to the dismissal of William Sessions over his abuses as FBI director. On the other hand, when the FBI does a good job, which they've been doing since 9/11, keeping us safe, there's been no successful foreign terrorist attack, then I say that, and that's very unusual in today's journalistic world. I mean, have you ever heard anybody say the FBI is doing a good job from a journalist? No.
A bit of this book just sounds a little sexist to me. I got to be honest with you. It just does. I don't hear
Why?
you going, Because it does. Just some of, like, the woman on a rampage running down the hallway. I just know from people that I know who personally worked in that White House who said he was a monster. Now, he may have been more charming and he knew how to conduct himself with other people, but she was enraged constantly because she was so humiliated and upset. Granted, she probably needed somebody to sit there and have her behave better, but,
Okay, well, but that's a different argument. You believe her. You believe this happened, but she had a good reason for it. Is different than saying you don't believe it.
That's what I'm saying. Is I don't necessarily believe it. Just on what the comments.
They're politicians and political families. They're not nice people.
Just on what I'm hearing, even about Michelle. It's like now there's a criticism about Michelle. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff, but why are we always going after them? So what do you think Bill would be like as the first? As
I said, the book says that Michelle does treat, or maybe I just said Obama, but the book says that Michelle and Obama treat their agents with respect and dignity. And Hillary has continued this behavior, long since Monica Lewinsky. If you say that she's in a constant state of rage because he's still screwing around, and by the way, he is. The book says that he has a mistress, blonde, busty mistress, who's been codenamed Energizer by agents. Then the next question is, well, why? What does it tell you about her that she puts up with us?
Yeah,
that's a whole backstory that I think I know a little bit about, but I'm not there, so I can't really say.
So what are the agents supposed to do when they have a president like Bill Clinton who is running around with other women? Are they supposed to, at all costs, cover it up, get him out of harm's way, delay?
Oh, and by the way, you don't think that's horrible behavior?
Oh, it's horrible.
To do to her?
No, yes, he's
Come
horrible.
on.
I found him to be a disgusting person.
Okay, so what's going to happen?
Well, Bill never, he was pretty sly. He never did anything that was obvious to agents. They sort of suspected something because Monica would show up at the Oval Office and spend a lot of time in there, but they didn't know what was going on. There was one episode where Bill was not answering the phone. The switchboard operators had put a call through from Dick Morris, and he was not answering the phone. And so agents were alerted. They were worried that something had happened to him, and they went in there and they called him, and they didn't hear anything back. And then they called again. Finally, he did come out of the little study that's off the Oval Office, and it turned out he was in there with Monica, and she was giving him oral sex while he's on the phone with Dick Morris.
Is that what he did? Did he run out and say, sorry?
But the agent never actually saw anything. And, he said to me, if he had seen something, he probably would have been fired or else made the new director of the Secret Service. But as far as their obligation goes, if agents witness, a real criminal act, not something like marijuana, but a criminal act, they are obligated to take action, to make arrests. But, it would be a sticky situation if it were the president.
All the stories coming out of the Secret Service in the last year, the drinking and the prostitutes and all that, has that always been going on?
Oh, no, never.
Or is there something about the environment in recent years that the agents just don't care anymore?
Are you kidding?
It really started around 2003 when the Department of Homeland Security under George Bush took over the Secret Service from the Treasury Department. And after that, this corner cutting started, possibly because it just seemed to be more political atmosphere, and also they had to fight for budgets more within DHS, but it just got worse and worse. And so it's the management culture, not necessarily the agents, even though there have been these incidents with agents. Generally, it's the management that condones cutting corners, blacksmiths. They'll even order agents to let people into events without magnetometer screening or metal detection screening under pressure from White House staffs, both Bush and Obama, and from campaign staffs. When there's a line outside, the Secret Service hasn't supplied enough magnetometers. Management will say, let him in, and sure enough, they let him in. I mean, that alone could result in an assassination. So when these agents see management taking risks like that, then I think some of them, jerks that they are, will say, hey, we should do whatever we want to do.
How do you really know what goes on behind a closed door unless Bill himself ran out of that room with Monica and say, sorry, guys, you know what she was doing? I mean, isn't a little bit of this somewhat presumptuous? I mean, I'm sure that's what was going on. But my point is...
That's what I said. No, actually, the Ken Starr investigation, which was based on FBI investigations, interviewed the individuals involved, and including Monica, and they came up with that scenario that I just mentioned. But the agents, actually never saw anything.
Good for Bill, I guess. So, okay, let's move. Let's go ahead a little bit. Hillary becomes president. Sorry, but I got to say it. And he is now the first husband, or whatever they'd call him. What would they call him? Mr. Madam? What is he called?
I don't know. The
first man. Sounds good.
First man? What the heck is that going to be like in another Clinton White House, but this time with her wearing the pants? And him without the pants. I mean, what would go on?
I think it would just be as chaotic as we saw in the first Clinton administration.
Think of all the books.
Where she has this compulsion to cover up everything, to be secretive about everything, but also to be very arrogant. You see her on TV claiming that the State Department said it was okay to do the server, which is obviously ridiculous. The FBI is now investigating.
That I agree with. You've got me on there. I agree with you there.
Compulsion about no second thoughts about lying, and that's not a very good sign when we're talking about the president.
All right, but don't you think she's almost trying to? I mean, she's trying any little loophole she can find to get this away from her. I mean, look, even Bernie himself said, "Can we move on from that issue?" Now we do need to sort of investigate and see what happened, and then move on. So in that way,
the FBI isn't going to drop the investigation because Bernie Sanders is tired of it.
Nor should they.
Yeah.
And the inspectors general have already said they have found classified information on the servers, and the law is very broad. The law says grossly negligently handling classified material is a violation, and by definition, if you take material out of the State Department that's classified and put it on some server somewhere, that is negligent, period.
Right, let's go back to fantasizing a little bit. So you've got Hillary as the president, you've got Bill as first whatever, and is he still, flying around with Ron Burkle and doing his thing, or is he going to stand behind, little children or something and find a little cause? What do you think's going to happen there?
A leopard never loses its spots. I think he will continue. He is continuing now. I go into some detail about the affair with his current mistress, codenamed Energizer. The reason
Love
that
that
she's
name, though.
Given that name is that the Secret Service code names for each family begin with the same letter. So in the case of the Clintons, the letter is E. He is Eagle, she is Evergreen, and so the mistress became Energizer. And
must be another reason for that, though. Come on.
Lives near their home in Chappaqua, and she will show up as soon as Hillary leaves, and she'll stay as long as a week. Agents are instructed not to ask for her ID or to sign her in, even though even Clinton relatives have to be signed in. And unlike Hillary, she's very nice to the agents. She'll bring them cookies. One hot summer day, she came in with cookies and offered them through the window of her SUV to the agent at the gate.
Oh, how sweet.
And she was wearing a low-cut tank top, and he noticed that her breasts are enhanced. So we have every detail in this book, The First Family Detail.
I hope she's a Republican spy. I really do.
Bill is pushing 70, and he still can reel that kind of girl in, huh?
He must be on every possible pill, that guy. I mean, look at him.
I mean,
wait a minute.
Plaudits for that.
So then Energizer would be like going in and out of the White House undercover, like under those like little stairway things under the White House. They'd be sneaking her in and sneaking her out.
There's got to be a mistress store. Yeah.
Or as with Monica, there would be some supposedly legitimate reason for her to visit. And then you close the door of the Oval Office, and then you do what you want.
Well, if I were Hillary, I would have done a lot more than just cursing. I swear to God. I think he has just made her crazy. And the fact, no one really talks about what would it...
you could have walked away from that crazy 30 years ago.
They could have, but they needed each other. It was very, they just kind of needed each other. I don't know if he needed her, but she needed him.
Yeah.
So
There's an enabling going on for sure.
I only have a minute or so, maybe even less. Who are you voting for? Clearly, you're a Republican. Who are you standing behind now? Let's put it that way.
You know, I
Come on, let
haven't
it out.
decided. I like a number of them. I actually like. I happen to know Donald Trump. I've known him for about 20 years because I did a book on Palm Beach.
Oh God,
and,
Marla? Did you do that whole thing with Marla?
No, but this was when he had first started going with Melania. They weren't married yet. But you know, I've known him ever since. And behind the scenes, he's totally different from what you see on TV.
I know.
Yeah,
I know him
TV,
as well. He's not quite the guy that he appears to be on TV. And I think he's going to quell that a little bit. And I think he has. I think he did in the previous debates. Right. And I think out there, so far, I really haven't heard anything else that he's been saying that's been so outrageous. He doesn't usually listen to any handlers, but this is one time that I think he's decided, you know what, all right, I'm going to sort of cool it on talking about Rosie O'Donnell and other people being horrible. Look at them. I think he's quieted down. But you're right. In private, he's kind of an okay guy. And people
just the
don't
opposite.
know that.
And in fact, you know, he treats his employees well. And like Hillary.
He does. He absolutely does.
His butler, Tony Senecal, had a heart attack at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, and Donald not only visited in the hospital but also insisted that he stay at Mar-a-Lago, his home and club, which is just a paradise. That's just one little example. Also,
you're right about that. I know quite a bit about him on the personal side, and he is a very generous guy. He just is, for those people out there listening, he is not as big of a nut, even if you're a Democrat, diehard. For me, I'd like to say on the personal, and you know that as well. He's just not the nut that he appears to be.
And if he is the nominee, I'm quite sure he will just become very moderate, appeal to the average voter. He told me several years ago, in fact, for a story, that if the GOP comes across as mean-spirited towards Hispanics, they'll never get in the White House. So that is ironic, but I think he'll go back to that position. And you know, people just remember the last soundbite, and he's just a master at pitching himself, and so he will keep moderating his positions to gain votes.
All right, I've got to cut you off because we're actually out of time. Ron Kessler, it's been great having you on. Will you come back?
I will.
Okay,
I'd love to.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
This is another edition of What's Up with Kobylt Hayes. We have two Kobylts here today, Zara Kobylt and John Kobylt, who agreed to come before his own show. Everybody, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.